Here. Okay, and hopefully everybody is okay with me recording this. So, all right, well, I'll introduce myself. My name is Steve Lang. I'm the Assistant Director of Career Services for Central Washington University's West Side Center to Des Moines and Pierce County. And the presentation today is I do a lot of presentations about interviewing. I've kind of focused a little bit more on teaching, but a lot of the same principles apply whatever kind of interview you're doing. And so I call this the interviewing game for teachers. And what I'll emphasize today is that to really do well in an interview, it takes the research, preparation, and practice. So you need to practice. So what I want to start with is kind of a little bit of an analogy here. I want to share 7 ways that interviewing is like dating. And so number 1 is desperation is not attractive. So most people recognize that if you're desperate for a date, it's not very attractive to the person that's looking for a partner. It's also important to be choosy and not take the first opportunity that comes along. And that's something that, when you find an opportunity that comes along, you want to make sure that you evaluate it really, really well. The other thing is make your interests personal, not generic. In other words, do you want to find a job that really personally matches your goals and your purpose and your interests? It's also okay to use a little bit of flattery. In other words, talk about how you enjoy, or what you like about the school district that you're going to be interviewing with, but you don't want to overdo it. And then the other thing that's really important is you want to ask yourself is if you like them and not just do they like you. I mean, so if they like you, it's flattering to you, but you have to really question whether or not it's a school district that you'd be interested in. And then another thing that's really important is you don't want to badmouth any of your previous experiences, your past employers, your past experiences you've had with school districts or teachers or any type of educational experience that you've had. So you don't want to badmouth any of your exes. And then keep your ego in check. You may be really enthusiastic and extremely confident, but you want to keep your ego in check. So that you don't kind of come across as being extremely boastful. So anyway, those are some things that I just think is kind of fun to play around with that to suggest how interviewing is kind of like dating. So a couple other things that I like to emphasize is first impressions are really important. On average, it takes the interviewer less than about 4 minutes to make a decision about a candidate. And in 95% of the cases, the decision is made within the first few minutes. It does not change by the end of the interview. Now, with virtual interviewing, that may have changed a little bit, but because a lot of this information was collected prior to the pandemic, but a lot of it is very, very much the same. And then more than 70% of an interviewer's first impression is based upon your appearance. And if you're doing a virtual interview, it's still the same thing. How you set up your virtual interview, how you're dressed in person. And so those are some things that are really important to consider. The other thing I want to emphasize that first impressions are also really important before the interview. You want to make a really good impression wherever you go and be conservative with your social media networking posts. I have one story I can share is I had a friend of mine that was late for an interview, and he had to go into a parking garage, and there was an old beater car in front of him that was just talking to the parking attendant and just really slowing things down. And then he took a slow time to go find a place to park. And the candidate, this friend of mine, honked at him and said, "Hey, gosh, I'm late." Well, when he went in to sit down and then got asked in to come in for the interview, it was actually the guy driving the old beater car was the person he was interviewing with. So it immediately did not make a very good impression with that person. And so wherever you are, if you're around in the community, you want to make a good impression. You never know when somebody from a school district that you want to apply to will be seeing you in public, as well as social media, as this cartoon depicts. So the other thing, like I've said this one on the presentations I've done on interviewing is, resumes and cover letters as well, is that you really need to know yourself. What are your interests? What are your values? What are your professional goals? What are your strong points? And then how can you best convince a school district that you are the best candidate for the job? And I've covered some of these if you have seen my presentations on resumes and cover letters. If you haven't, there are recordings of those. from a previous, I think last year, have the same information. I encourage you to find out how to reach those through our YouTube channel. And then know the job in the school district that you're applying to. So in other words, how you do that is you research not only the job that you see that you're applying for, but research the school district, its culture, philosophy, mission, and goals. You need to know as much about that district as possible. And then explore the district. And how you do that is you explore the district's website literature, read current and archived media, talk to people that work for the school district or past employees, or people that do business with the district. So you want to learn as much as you can about the district and about the job that you will be applying for, or to the district you'll be applying toward. And then the other thing that people don't spend nearly enough time is preparing and practicing for interviews. You want to be able to answer at least two of these questions that are presented here in 2 minutes or less. So basically, you want to prepare short answers that demonstrate you are in command of your career goals. And so tell me a little bit about yourself. That's a really difficult one. But basically, it's how you answer that is you state where you are right now, a student at Central Washington University, doing your student teaching. And your plan is to become an elementary teacher, and you really want to work for this district. What are your career goals? What are your strengths? What are your weaknesses? And then also, why do you want to work for this specific school or district that you're applying to? Other thing that you need to be prepared for is behavioral-based questions. I don't know how many of you have heard of behavioral-based questions, but behavioral-based questions presume that your past performance will indicate your future performance. And some of the questions that employers will use to assess these, they want to assess, customer service, your stress tolerance. So they'll ask you questions that will be wanting to know how you have behaved in previous experiences where you've encountered these, where you've taken an initiative, where you've show your organizational skills, your problem-solving skills, your teamwork skills. So these are some things that they're going to ask you questions because this is what they're assessing, these types of things. Sample elementary education interview questions. These are actual questions that elementary school districts have given us. And so I'll just read a couple of them here. Describe your education experience and interest in and then you can insert any school district or school that makes you a viable candidate for this position. What is your knowledge and experience in utilizing technology? Grade level planning is the norm in our district. What experience do you have with team planning, and what strengths do you bring to a team? So these are some questions that you can be expected to be asked in an interview situation. There will be lots more, but these are the kinds of questions that you're likely to be asked. And then I think it's really important, and I shouldn't say I know it's really important to prepare questions to ask the interviewers as well, to show that you have a vested interest in the position. So here are some questions that were also are good questions to ask. And this is after the interview is concluded, and they ask that most times they'll ask you, do you have any questions for us? Here are some examples. Do you encourage teachers to earn advanced degrees? So that will enable you to know whether how well they support the teachers to continue their education. Do you have teachers serving areas which they do not have full certification? What support staff members are available to help students and teachers? And then what allowances are provided for supplies and materials? I know this has been a big issue in a number of different school districts across the country. And then does administration encourage field trips for students? So these are some types of questions that you might want to ask depending upon what's important to you. The thing you don't want to ask about is salary and benefits. Salary and benefits you should either already know what the salary range is, or this is something that can be discussed after you are offered the job. Oftentimes they will post the salary range, and this is something that they will bring up, but this is not something that you want to bring up on your own. And then, so like I said, know what the advertised salary or the salary range is for the position, because you want to avoid under or overselling yourself. And then consider the other thing that's really important to consider is more than just the salary when you're given an offer. How long a commute do you have? What are the benefits that are being provided? What are the flexibility of the hours? What kind of professional development opportunities are they going to offer? What's the work environment like? And then kind of leave allowance. And so there's a lot of different things that go into considering an offer of employment. So these are some things that you want to consider. It's also really important to follow up after an interview. We recommend promptly sending a thank you email to if it's either the individual who led the interview team, or getting the names of all three people, or if you send a letter just to the lead interviewer, make sure that you have him thank the other interviewers as well. So send an email, card, or letter. And the reason I say this is, even if you're not offered a job, sending a thank you can lead to a lot of positive consequences, because if they don't have a particular opening for you at that time, by sending them a thank you letter, you are going to make a really good impression. They may have been really impressed with your credentials, but they only had one opening. And if another opening comes available within a few months or within a year, and they remember who you are, they're more likely to at least reach out to you and say, hey, we have a job opening and you interviewed with us. I've had a number of occasions where when I do this for just, various industries, or a generalized interviewing workshop, I've had a number of people raise their hands. Hey, that happened to me. I thanked the people, and like 4 months later, they called me back and said they had a position that was a better fit for me. And so sending a thank you card or email is really important. And then also keep a log of the positions you apply to, and the school districts and the contacts you make. And that's really helpful, because you want to make sure, if you are following up, if you see that if you have interviewed for a position, or you didn't get invited for an interview position because there was not one open, but you talked to somebody, say at a career fair, which there are a couple career fairs coming up in February and March, education career fairs. If you get their contact information, you can, and you see a position opening, you can send a letter and say, hey, I met you at the Central Washington, education career fair on such a date, and we had a nice discussion with you. I'm really interested in applying for this position, or a position within your school district. Do you have any recommendations? So that's really good to keep a log of who you've contacted, when and where you've contacted them, so that you can follow up with them at a later time. What to bring to an interview. I always recommend a pad folio. I don't know, let's see, I don't have one with me today. A pad folio is just kind of a folder with a notepad in it. And it might have, and it's just something to keep some information in. I always bring copies of your resume and your references and letters of recommendation with you when you go to an interview. Oftentimes you will have already provided those, but it's a good idea to have copies of those in case there's an interview team, and not everybody in that team or committee may have seen that information. In some instances, it may be helpful to bring a portfolio of your work if it's appropriate. And then, like I say, if you bring that pad full, you have that notepad, and you can jot down some notes during the interview or questions that you want to ask the interviewers. And then, whether you are going for an interview, or as some of you will be doing and attending job fairs in the next couple of months, we recommend that you dress conservatively. Limit your jewelry and accessories. Leave your piercings at home and cover your tattoos. I mean, even though that's more accepted today than it was 20 years ago, even 10 years ago, it's best to be really conservative, because you never know what about a school district. A lot of school districts, it may not be taboo to have a tattoo or have piercings. Earrings are fine, but it's just, you want to present yourself a little bit more conservatively at in an interview or a job fair. And so, like I say, it's better to overdress than to underdress. Avoid perfumes and colognes, because a lot of people are, more and more people are allergic to those or find those very kind of obnoxious. And so, and then you want to maintain good hygiene. Make sure you've got your fingernails are cleaned, your hair is combed, and then wear clean, neatly pressed clothes. One thing that I still see a lot of students doing in job fairs is that they will show up in jeans and tennis shoes. It depends on the industry or the field you're going into, but that can be immediately, you're not setting a really good example, that you consider this a really important opportunity to meet these employers. So you want to make sure that you're dressed appropriately. So the keys to successful job interview is same thing as a resume or cover letter. You need to know yourself. When you're applying, you need to know the school, the district, and its philosophy and its reputation, so you can speak as to why you fit with this school district or position. And then practice your interviewing skills. If you haven't done any mock interviews, you might get together a group and practice doing mock interviews, or you can contact our career services office and we're happy to work with you for mock interviews. And then dress for success. These are the keys to a successful job interviews. Know yourself, know who you're applying to, know the fit, and then just practice your interviewing skills. And then know what kind of attire you need to wear when you're going to a job interview or a career fair. So I really don't have a whole heck of a lot more to offer. That's a very quick, very pointed presentation, but this is our contact information. This is my information is here. There is this is my email. There's a QR code if somebody wants to book an appointment with me. I really highly recommend that if you've not had anybody in career services look at your resume, that you at least email me a copy of your resume prior to these job fairs so that I can provide you with some constructive feedback and help you enhance those resumes. And then if you want to practice interviewing skills, same thing. You can click on this QR code right here in the middle, and that will take you to my bookings page, and you can schedule an appointment. The other thing over here, which if you would be kind enough, this is a workshop survey. If you can just take a picture of that, there's 2 or 3 questions. If you could just quickly answer those and give us some feedback on whether I talked too fast, I didn't give you enough information, how we can improve our workshop. So I'm going to go ahead and stop the recording there, and then I'll be here to answer any questions that you might have.
What questions do you have?
I have a question.